I want to bring up our final speaker. Her name is Terry Powell, and she is Aleut, and she was born in Cordova and grew up in Bethel in Kodiak, Alaska. She's a graduate of the University of Alaska Fairbanks. She's the daughter of Bob and Esther Mulcahy. Sorry, try not to butcher that. She's the eldest of 5 children and is a lifelong Alaskan. She's a member of the Chukaga Alaska Corporation and the EAC Corporation. Ms. Powell has been a member of the Alaska Area Institutional Review Board since 1994 and currently serves as an IRB administrator. Her interests include research ethics, healthcare research, and bioethics. And Ms. Powell has been married to her college sweetheart for 34 years. I think that's worth saying. She's a proud mother of 2 children and a new grandmother. So with that, let's welcome up Ms. Terry Powell. Here it is. So forward.
Probably use the arrows.
Okay. And
In view. Good deal. Thank you. Hello. Thank you very much for spending your time here today. I want to first compliment Francine and Jeff on their presentations. I've worked with them for a lot of years, and I had to sort of second guess what they were going to say as we came up here and talked about, can genetics research improve health for Alaska Native and American Indian people? That's a really big question. I'm still on the fence. I've seen research studies from the Institutional Review Board on many things where it has improved the health of Alaska Native people, but then I've seen what Vince called helicopter, or I call mosquito research, happening up in Alaska, where an elder that's known me from the YK, Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta, since I was 4 years old, crossed paths with me in the Anchorage airport many years ago in the early 2000s, and here's a quote. I always ask him when I see him, can I give his name out? He says no, but I can repeat the quote. So I'm walking through the Anchorage airport. It's our largest city in our state, and I'll give you a little background on our state here in a minute. And he said to me, hey, it's summertime in Alaska. I was on vacation and kind of in a hurry. Should have paid closer attention. And I said, oh, what do you mean? Stopped and visited for a minute, and he said, the researchers, they're all over, and they're taking our blood just like the mosquitoes. I really should have paid attention. Within a month, that project was sitting very hotly in my lap, and I really did get a heads up from that. So what I'm here to talk about is the Alaska Area Specimen Bank. And it's a tribal-federal partnership. I don't know how many of you have been to the Alaska Native Medical Center in Anchorage, Alaska, but on the medical center we have a Centers for Disease Control and Prevention Arctic Investigations field station. We actually have a physical building with a laboratory, many geeky people in that laboratory that I've learned a lot about over these last 20 years. And within that laboratory, since the 1960s, are specimens from our friends and family and whoever received care within our health system, which was not all tribal at that time. Some of our tribal health organizations existed, but all of these specimens were sort of gathered up. It was called by researchers and by the IRB the bank. Well, when I graduated from the University of Alaska Fairbanks many, many, many decades ago, I really thought I was going to grow up and be a banker, like my parents were. I had no idea that it would be a bank of our stuff. So the first time a protocol came through I think it was 1996, it was a cardiology protocol from a very respected physician in Alaska and a researcher. I was sitting around the table and I'd read my 12 stacks, and as I read through these stacks, I thought, gosh, they keep talking about the bank. Is that First National or National Bank of Alaska? And I'm a community member. Be careful what you volunteer for. So I'm here to tell you about the Alaska Area Specimen Bank and how we have worked with a couple of strong leaders together to bring this across the state of Alaska, across all of our tribal health orgs, and they have now signed on to this. It was a long, hard path that started with a formal partnership, and the theme that emerged from this work was this Alaska Area Specimen Bank has been determined by the tribal health leaders, the elected leaders of Alaska, not those of us that work for them, as a resource for improving the health of Alaska Native people. The co-chairs of that committee are Sally Smith and Ellen Parkinson. If anybody knows Sally Smith, she sets a very good example, and she said, we can do this. I'll take it across Alaska. I'll get all the tribes to sign on. By gosh, it was done. It started in the early 2000s. There's a citation for a paper that we published about this about 3 years ago, and you'll see it on one of my slides. I've been part of the Specimen Bank Working Group, a group of about 40 of us across the state of Alaska since its inception. And when Malia said, ethics is a daily engagement, it's not just what's written down, that really struck home. It's a daily engagement. Even this trip coming out Saturday night, I saw someone in the Anchorage airport, and their hello was, hi, IRB lady, where you going? So 20 years later, it's a daily engagement. And this is a big one, because as we do research and collect items, our advice to other tribal nations is to get your arms around it, use some models. This one will be at NCAI, and really start to take control of the stuff that is ours. So I'm going to, first of all, I know there's a lot of Alaskans in the room, but there are a lot of non-Alaskans in the room, and I want to give you a little information on how big our state is and just how big this is to grasp and work with every day. I want to tell you about the specimen bank and what it actually is and how long it's been there, and the parts that are consented and the parts are not consented. I want to tell you about our tribal health organizations and our partners in Alaska, the Arctic Investigations Program. And then I'll even tell you, and I want you to keep it kind of quiet, how to have access to those specimens. So Alaska is really large. In 2010, there were 714,000 people in the state of Alaska. 138,000 were Alaska Native people and American Indian people. And half of the 714,000 live down here at the bottom star, right here in Anchorage. So half of the other people that are Alaskans live in rural Alaska, in our smaller communities. We're a large state. We're 1/5 the size of the lower 48 down here. We have a very high healthcare cost, although it's starting to come down with telehealth, and we have weather to deal with each and every day. Our background is varied and large and different, and we have to respect that. We have a tribal health system. This map is hard to read, but it lists out our tribal health organizations, and as you can see, our elected tribal leaders have broken us down by region, and I see some of our leaders in this room. So the Alaska Area Specimen Bank is a large bank of unused specimens that have been gathered, since the 1960s. It's housed right on our Alaska Native Health campus, and we consider it a resource for improving health of Alaska Native people. We have about 266,000 specimens directly correlated, directly linked, not on the tube themselves, but in a list that's controlled to 84,000 people in Alaska. And 85% of those specimens belong to our family and our friends and ourselves. We look at this specimen bank as a responsibility, a fiduciary responsibility, held in trust for our grandchildren and their grandchildren. Although, because of this specimen banking protocol and the wishes of the tribal leaders and tribal people across Alaska, because individual specimens can be linked to us, our grandmother, my grandson, any person may contact the specimen bank and remove a specimen at any time they want to. It takes about a day or two to connect the dots, because my specimen doesn't say Terry Powell Aleut on it. I have to go through these little gyrations, but I've actually seen it done. And it's how we had to work this deal for a 50-year-old resource. So I've actually been in here. My background is, again, from the community. It's a big facility. and they're kept at CLIA temperatures. And each specimen, and I was really careful to put this on here, has a unique number tracked over these 50 years, over time. So this is data in itself, but the information that we gather from this and how we use it, that data takes a life of its own. And so we wanted to sort of keep that in mind as we wrote this policy. It's tricky. You got to get in your skiff, find the middle of the river, try not to hit too many sandbars on the way up. That's just how I looked at it. There were lots of sandbars from 2005 till now. But now, when we get requests to talk about the Alaska Area Specimen Bank and how it's managed, here's the layer of government that sits on top of it, both tribal and federal. And this was, again, by choice of the elected tribal leaders of Alaska. It's managed once a year, and I also liked, I think it was Malea's comment, once a year the committee comes together, the Alaska Area Working Group Committee, and we have a face-to-face meeting. Varies a little bit by location, but a lot of our culture can be seen in our body language, actually. And so once a year, every year, leaders from across Alaska, usually piggyback to our compact, come in, and we have a full-day meeting on the specimen bank. It's managed day to day by a banking committee, and it reports to a board at the Alaska Native Tribal Health Consortium called the Health Research Review Committee. This is a tribal board of elected tribal leaders from across the state of Alaska. They give those reports quarterly, and then they have their standard IRBs from CDC in the Alaska area. We decided that the research that results in the collection and use of these samples had to have this umbrella over it, because we had enough of examples of not everybody being at the table when specimens were going to be used. Genetic research is moving fast. We have people who are alive today giving specimens to the specimen bank with full consent nowadays, but they also have specimens that were there since they were 4 or 5 years old. So we had to have a way of thinking about processing that and being very transparent about it. So nowadays, if you were going to participate in a study at the Alaska Native Health Campus, you would be asked these questions. Would you like to save them, yes or no? What would you like to do with them? Would you like to, and you have to be really careful in Alaska with this word, discard the samples. I've seen poor Dr. Parkinson almost get strung up in the middle of Alaska when he used the word destroy. There's certain CLIA standards that we have to do, but other people, like Francine said, want all their parts and pieces when they go on to the next world. So vocabulary is a really big part of your talks with friends and family. And there's uses within the specimen banking protocol of when a study ends, how a study ends, so that consent is an ongoing process. You might participate in a cardiovascular study, you might give your blood, you might interface with the research team for 5 years, but there is a vast amount of information left in your donated blood that can be used in the future. We want you to understand that that's possible and give permission, yes or no. The banking committee itself conducts reviews of protocols, IRBs conduct reviews of protocols, and the first and the last, from twinkle in the eye concept approval and final approval for a project using these specimens comes from the tribal health organizations and the villages that they represent, the first and the last. So remember, in Alaska, we have one reservation, but we're made up of THOs, tribal health organizations, and the specimen banking protocol has been a part of us for 50 years. There is only one IRB of record that is allowed to review this, and we sort of downplay that part because we really want the tribal health organizations to be broadcasting and taking accounting for this. But like Francine said, each of the different tribal health orgs, they have their own process to follow, and we need to be very respectful of that. Some meet twice a year, some meet quarterly, some meet every month. As you all know, this is not a funded resource, ethics. A lot of times there's no money in it, but boy, if it backfires, it can really hurt. So I think one of the things that Native people across the world, across Indian country, have learned very, very well, and our resilience is to work together. And working together can improve health, maybe not, again, in my lifetime, according to Dr. Henderson, but hopefully in my grandson's lifetime. That's it. I'll be open for questions at the end.